This presentation is about motivation in high school populations. First of all, we're just going to start with the basics of what motivation really is and why it's important. Motivation is the force that initiates, guides, and maintains goal-oriented behaviors. It's really the force that drives us to get something to drink when we're thirsty or food when we're hungry. It causes us to take action. The forces behind motivation can be biological, social, emotional, or cognitive. And it's really just focused on our wants and our needs, and motivation impacts how we think and feel and how we act. And this is important because it drives you, it gets you started, and it helps lead to change. And this is essential in sports. High motivation is an essential prerequisite in getting athletes to reach their full potential. So next, I would just like to discuss different types of motivation. So we're going to start with intrinsic motivation. This is motivation that comes from inside an individual rather than external or outside rewards. So the motivation intrinsically comes from the pleasure one gets from the task or the satisfaction that comes with completing that task. For example, a runner who's intrinsically motivated runs because it feels good and they enjoy it, rather than just to beat someone or to win trophies. I do want to be sure to mention that this doesn't mean that someone who's intrinsically motivated doesn't seek rewards. It just means that external rewards aren't enough to keep that specific person motivated. Next, we have extrinsic motivation, and this is motivation that is driven by external rewards such as awards, trophies, ribbons, grades, money, things like that. People who are extrinsically motivated are really trying to avoid punishment, and extrinsically motivated athletes tend to focus on the competitive or performance outcome aspects of the sport, and extrinsic motivators are best applied in situations where people have little initial interest in the task. But it's important to note that rewards should always be kept small and be tied to the performance of a specific behavior. Next, I'm going to discuss a few theories of motivation, and I'm going to begin with the goal theory. Goals are related to motivation because they're cognitive representations of the approaches and intentions that people have in different achievement situations. And research studies in psychology have suggested that humans are naturally driven to achieve goals to validate or demonstrate abilities that they're attempting to develop or acquire. So, the goal theory proposed that all individuals have patterns of beliefs called goal orientations, leading to different approaches and responses to various learning activities. These beliefs include reasons for choosing to pursue certain goals while avoiding others, as well as how progress is evaluated towards reaching these goals. The most common difference in these goal orientations is mastery learning goals and performance learning goals. Mastery learning goals really motivate the athlete through the process of learning and achieving challenges presented to them, and these students are more likely to engage in more effective learning strategies and higher level thinking skills when learning new material. Whereas performance learning goals, these students prefer to demonstrate superior abilities or skills over others by outperforming them or by trying to avoid the negative judgment of others. Performance goals emphasize the display of high ability and accomplishment without failure. And this sense of accomplishment is usually rewarded through external rewards and reinforcements rather than intrinsic rewards. Overall, it can be concluded that the most important implication for education and the biggest difference between goal orientations is their approach to mistakes and failures. And as I previously mentioned, it's really important to provide a positive, supportive environment. So, in these situations, building motivation, I feel that mastery learning goals have the upper hand in this situation. Next is the drive theory. According to the drive theory, people are motivated to take certain actions in order to reduce internal tensions or internal battles caused by unmet needs they have, such as hunger, thirst, or exhaustion. So, now that we have a good look at what motivation really is, I'd like to move into some techniques on increasing motivation. In sports psychology, there are numerous techniques used to increase motivation, including positive self-talk, small rewards, goal setting, and visualizing success. I feel that visualizing success is one of the best motivators. Visualizing yourself achieving your end goal vividly will help you boost the drive to achieve that goal. So, for example, if your team's goal is winning state, then you should visualize yourselves hoisting that trophy in the air and thinking about how that moment will feel for you and all the hard work that it took to get there. I know that this is a lot of information at once, but really the goal here is obviously to increase motivation, but to also help the athlete reach the ideal motivational pattern, which can be described as learned effectiveness, and that was a term coined by Bob Rotella in 1981. This just refers to the athlete perceiving and reacting to sport in ways that will maximize the effectiveness. So, characteristics of learned effective athletes include not making excuses or placing the blame on others, viewing weaknesses as challenges, being confident due to the preparation and the work that they've put in, setting goals, and really determining success by internal factors rather than external factors. So far we've discussed what motivation is and some techniques that are used and why it's important. So now I would like to touch base on something that I feel is a really important note for you coaches to understand, and that's understanding and utilizing different types of reinforcement and punishment. These are two very, very big keys in motivation, and I think it's important to really understand the ins and outs of them. So reinforcement, positive reinforcement is the act of increasing the probability of an occurrence of a certain behavior by following it with an action or event such as praise or something like that. Negative reinforcement is the act of increasing a behavior by removing an act or an object or event that is typically disliked. So, for example, let's say every night at the end of basketball practice, you guys have to run suicides. And the coaches know that's not something anybody enjoys. So, a negative reinforcement would be reinforcing that positive behavior by making them not run suicides at the end of practice. You're reinforcing that behavior by taking away a negative. Next, we have punishment. Punishment is designed to decrease the occurrence of negative behaviors such as lack of effort or mistakes. So, positive punishment sounds very contradicting, but it presents a negative consequence after an undesired behavior is exhibited, making the behavior less likely to happen. For example, your coach may reprimand you for getting a technical foul during the game because it prevents that behavior from becoming a habit. Negative punishment is the removal of something valued, which can take the form of revoking privileges or playing time or things like that. While coaches may use both of these forms of motivation, The positive approach is arguably more effective because it focuses on what athletes should do and what they are doing right, rather than the negative focuses and focusing on what went wrong. Using reinforcement and having this task relevant focus really helps facilitate reaction time and decision time and focus, and a successful experience colors the athlete's view as positive, which can lead to more positive, approachful behaviors. So finally, I would just like to go over some suggestions that I have for the team. First of all, the environment that you have as a team is extremely important. This should be a very encouraging environment with structured training and trust between coaches and teammates and all of that. Next, I think it's necessary that as a team you all come together and set some goals for yourselves. You can start by creating short-term, smaller goals, like, for example, improving the team's overall free throw shooting percentage. And you can also create some bigger long-term goals, such as making it to state or even winning state. The point of the goal setting is just to unify all of you and motivate you as a whole. Another suggestion would be creating small incentives as motivators, but using this suggestion, it is really important to keep these incentives on a short-term basis, and they should never be the primary source of motivation. And finally, I would really like to discuss the impact of your teammates. I feel that this is the biggest asset you guys have. Developmental work shows that peer influence is very influential, especially going through childhood and young adulthood. So as teammates, you're able to hold each other accountable for certain behaviors, such as offering help or support or sharing knowledge or expertise with each other. And it's really important that you hold each other accountable and make sure that you're all helping each other. It's important that you all work together to support each other to keep each other motivated. I really hope that these suggestions work for you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any of them. And thank you very much for your time today.